Pick it up, the woman's voice snapped, her posture rigid at the curve of the grand staircase. He stared at her, face unreadable. It's not my department, he said, voice level, hands still at his sides. She didn't blink. One perfectly manicured finger pointed to the box of tangled cords near the marble banister. Are you deaf? Pick it up. The crowd behind her fell silent, uncertain. His eyes flickered toward his daughter, standing half behind his leg, clutching her chipped ceramic bird. He reached down, but not for the box. Instead, he pressed a single button on his phone, then placed it back in his pocket. A faint tremor ran across her jaw. The phone in her handbag vibrated. She glanced down and color drained slowly from her face. Who is this? He didn't answer. Stay with this story. It started 6 weeks earlier, on a morning layered with low newspaper fog and the groan of bicycle gears. The rear tire of the battered red bicycle protested as Matthew Sloan wheeled it onto Maple Street, the morning route's familiar patchwork of cracked concrete and scattered leaves stretching ahead of him. The city always carried a slight ache in its bones before sunrise, and the rust-bitten basket overloaded with newsprint didn't help his. With every bump, a stack of folded tribunes threatened to tip. He kept one eye on the clock. If he missed the 5th stop, Mrs. Lewicki would raise hell, and the Tribune would dock his pay again. He bent down, readjusted the twine around the largest bundle, ignoring the insistent ping of his cell. A robotic voice announced, "Appointment canceled, please call to reschedule." For the 3rd time in as many weeks, the doctor's office had brushed him aside. He erased the notification with a thumb, jaw working. A minivan swung into the curb, brakes shrieking. Hannah Bentley emerged, heels clicking, blazer pressed sharp as glass. Her presence reshaped the morning. 3 assistants flowed behind her, phones in hand, murmuring instructions. She caught his eye and stopped. "You stop right there," she called. The assistants froze, a click of her tongue. "This is the Tribune's new recruit." He straightened as best he could, wiping newsprint onto worn jeans. Delivery, not staff. The air grew tight. She considered him, then the bike, then his well-worn sneakers. Of course, she sniffed, should have guessed. A slim folder was thrust at one assistant. "Get me the actual staff, not whatever this is." Matthew didn't respond, but slid the next paper onto her townhome, stoop with a care bordering on reverent. She smirked, "I hope you ride better than you fold." He folded the tips of his left glove inside out, a habit, the only outward acknowledgement her words met more than air. One assistant snorted, then caught herself, murmured apology. Hannah dismissed them all with a wave, back to the car. The minivan's door slammed. Matthew picked up the scattered scraps, each with someone else's headline, and moved on. Day only grew heavier from here. Matthew climbed the 2 flights to apartment 2G, sweat already stiffening his shirt collar even as the sun was barely up. The lock clicked behind him, and the apartment's hush was the day's first mercy. From the back room, 5-year-old Sophia appeared, hair rumpled, feet dragging. In her hands was the cracked bluebird, still chipped at its tail from last fall's stairwell tumble. She wobbled to the kitchen and set the little bird on the counter beside a battered lunchbox. Matthew knelt beside her. "Early start, kiddo." She frowned, eyes traveling to his left hand. "Did your hand hurt again?" He shook his head, but not convincingly. A sheet of construction paper peeked over the fridge, decorated with kid handwriting. "Dad," Sophia said, voice floating, "do you wish Mommy could see us now?" He set down the spoon he was stirring too fast, breath breaking for a second. "Hey, that's a big question for before cereal." She didn't let go. "Do you smile when you're sad, Daddy?" The room compressed. He placed a palm over her hair, fingers gentle. "Sometimes it helps." Sophia pressed the bluebird into his hand. "Take this, she liked when you carried it." He pressed a kiss to the top of her head, then opened the drawer beside the stove. For 2 seconds, his hand hovered over an old State Department badge, half concealed by tax bills and a faded hospital wristband, reminders of a life shelved, another lost in sacrifice. The badge disappeared behind the stack. Packing Sophia's lunch, He slipped a note in the shape of a folded boat under her sandwich. "You are brave, Dad." Sophia watched, eyes tracing the waves on the paper. "Will you be home when I get back?" "Don't I always try?" he replied, pushing the bird back into her grip. She considered him solemnly. "Try harder, not everyone gets to try." He ruffled her hair. Outside, morning returned in layers of city sound. A world away and 30 floors higher, Hannah Bentley swept into the corner office of the Crown Meridian Hotel. Even at 8 a.m., the roofline windows stared out over the city's spine with indifferent clarity. She motioned sharply as her senior assistant entered. "Coffee, my usual." Her imperatives cut through quiet. "Make it hot, no sugar, schedule the mayor's call, not afternoon." A pause, then, "Get the security report on last week's guest incident and the electrical upgrade progress today." The assistant took notes, eyes flicking between Hannah's face and the trembling screen of her phone. "Now, please." As the assistant retreated, Hannah's hand hovered over a framed photograph angled away from the sunlight. The teenager in the frame wore hospital bands, hair tied back against two thin shoulders. A locked bottle of medication sat on the desk, label turned so even a passing eye could not catch the diagnosis. When her phone buzzed, Hannah read the message. Johanna missed group again. She set her jaw, sweeping the phone aside. The daily stack of press clippings appeared on her tablet. Never enough about business, always too much about family, according to her. A silent ring flashed, number withheld. She frowned, lips thin. "Yes," her voice barely moved. A former college roommate's voice threaded through, honeyed by memory but acid sharp. "You always had to win, Hannah. That's how you lost Johanna." Call ended. The hand holding the phone trembled almost imperceptibly. She drew a breath, glancing at the list of new hires. "That's the Tribune delivery, not our staff." "Confirmed," the assistant called from the other door. "Forget him," Hannah said, voice iron flat. "He's not our problem. For now." 2 days later, the hotel ballroom glimmered under crystal lights, guests streaming in for the pre-opening gala. Amid the swirl of pressed suits and flowing gowns, Matthew arrived not in disguise but in uniform. News cap, faded jacket, bicycle helmet under one arm. He delivered the custom invitation himself, unaware he'd been scheduled as the decorator's assistant for the night. Inside, chaos. The lighting flickered, one wall of spotlights dead. Staff clustered, muttering, "It's the main breaker again. Said it was fixed last week." A junior tech, sweating, gestured helplessly. Hannah arrived, her smile brittle. If tonight fails, someone is getting replaced. Matthew calm knelt beside the main wiring bundle, rolled up his sleeves, showing forearms marked by a single old scar. The ballroom manager frowned. "You don't have clearance." Matthew didn't pause. He touched the panel, checked one junction, then 3 more down the line, fingers quick as a piano player. "I'm telling you, it's the relay box, again." Matthew's hands stilled. "It's not the relay, it's the ground between circuit 5 and 8, that's your short." The assistant's mouth fell open. "How did you?" The engineers missed that. Matthew reached inside, flicked a tiny steel lever with 2 fingers. The lights surged, then stayed, white and bright and sharp. A ripple of disbelief moved through staff. Hannah didn't bat an eye, probably a fluke, sometimes even broken clocks are right twice a day. She swept past. But the ballroom manager watched Matthew now, not with suspicion but with a frown of deep curiosity. He had seen this before, 20 years ago. By the time guests spilled into the service corridor, moving between the marble and the catering hall, that same manager, nameplate reading Jeffries, sought counsel in the shadows. He typed Matthew's name into old company admin logs, but the database returned nothing before last month. Undeterred, he dug deeper and archived city payroll from 6 years back, a list of international postings. Not quite right. Then a forgotten news brief. Foreign consulate hosts rescue seminar. Photo blurred, but the caption read, "Special Envoy Sloan at the Lisbon Consulate." Jeffries put the phone down with a click. Elsewhere, Sophia waited at the school gates, hands tight around the ceramic bird. She pressed her nose to the fence, watching another girl hold court with new classmates. When Miss Bell, the after-school aide, asked, "Why don't you join them?" Sophia replied quietly, "But she needs a friend, a real one." Miss Bell's face softened. At home, Matthew washed dishes with rough, economical movements. Sophia's words echoed in his hands, making him nearly drop a mug. The apartment calendar displayed 2 reminders: FDA approval, last window 30 days, and doctor, still unscheduled. Some records matter more than others. The next morning, an unmarked sedan blocked the Tribune's delivery entrance. A man in a tailored suit stepped out, flashing a badge. "You Sloan?" "Depends." "Hotel said you tripped their breaker on purpose." The man accused, eyes narrowed. Jeffries, standing behind, leaned forward. "Leave it, Phil. That guy saved your event. I was there." Phil snorted, "Not my call. Corporate wants him out." Matthew lifted his basket wordlessly, refusing the cash offered for not returning. "You need it, don't you?" Jeffries said quietly. "I need a lot of things, but not that," Matthew replied. The request hung in the air as Phil got back into his car, unsatisfied. A storm seemed to gather somewhere outside. Jeffries, thoughtful, pulled out his phone and dialed. "Hey, I think we need to talk about who really works for us." Tension grew with every passing minute. By next week, the hotel's back channels buzzed. Hannah received a flagged message from IT, "Sloan's file incomplete, possible alias flagged." Her assistant hovered in the doorway, voice tentative. "Should we escalate?" She didn't look up. "Blacklist him, call the Tribune, notify his landlord if you have to." The auditorium was set for that afternoon's investor tour. Hannah took the stage, her voice drilling through the sound system. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We've raised standards. Others deliver old news, we make news." As she spoke, Jeffries made subtle eye contact with Matthew, who, near the exit, folded napkins for the caterers, each corner set with mathematical care. Later, in a whisper, Jeffries pulled him aside. "They're going to make more trouble," he said. Matthew nodded. "I've been through worse." Out in the lobby, his phone buzzed. He cleared his throat and pressed redial, whispering, "Yes, you can come now." Nothing further. Meanwhile, at Sophia's school, a teacher pulled her aside, frowning at a torn backpack. "Someone took your snack again." Sophia shrugged. "I saved them the last animal cracker. People need saving." The teacher blinked, uncertain what to say. In the city's trembling quiet, Matthew waited, his body perfectly still. He should not have made this her problem. The ballroom was arranged for spectacle, a silvered stage for the city's best and boldest, cameras set, guests ushered to their marks by spotless uniforms. The hotel's logo hung on giant banners. Behind a roped-off partition, Hannah surveyed her staff, tension wired into every gesture. She gave the order, "Bring in the announcement team, make sure security is tight." The doors opened and Matthew walked in, subtlety discarded. He wore a collared shirt for once, sleeves buttoned, Sophia's ceramic bird tucked into his pocket, the outline just visible. His chin was up, his gait measured. Jeffries nodded, lips tight. Hannah noticed his arrival, lips curving in something almost like a smile. "You weren't invited," she said softly, only for Matthew to hear. "Sometimes we show up anyway." She folded her arms. A ringtone sliced the room's hush, her own phone. She glanced, then answered, voice clipped. "Yes, who is this?" A distant, official tone replied. "Consul Sloan, this is Deputy Secretary Rochefort, FDA Bureau." The room froze, every head turning as color drained from Hannah's face. The voice continued, "You claimed authority here, we see no record, but Mr. Sloan's decision stands." Matthew broke eye contact, hands folded before him. Hannah's grip on her phone whitened her knuckles. "We had protocol," she began. He shook his head, meeting her eyes, voice low, even. "I never once asked for your seat, you just pushed harder than anyone." A hush stampeded across the faces present. Jeffries looked down, someone in legal tapped a pen in a staccato, a third assistant had her mouth parted in disbelief. Hannah opened her mouth, but no sound followed. "The board will deal with the contract fallout," came the voice from the phone, and silence wrapped the room. Color left her face from the forehead down. She clutched the banister, breath shallow. "Who is this?" 6 months later, city sunlight scattered gold on the schoolyard blacktop, the air less tense, the lines on faces finer somehow. Sophia sat with 2 girls at lunch, the ceramic bird front and center beside her juice box. A folded note, brighter than before, peeked out from her lunch bag. "You help more than you know, Dad." Jeffries, now operations lead, passed by the Tribune's newsstand, nodding to Matthew, who handed him a fresh paper, no words needed. Hannah's name appeared in passing in the paper's business section, out by mutual decision. Her corner office now overlooked a quieter, older part of town. Matthew waited outside school, one hand steadied on his bike. Sophia saw him and ran, ponytail wild, grin unfiltered. "Daddy, are you still tired from being tough?" He crouched to her level, this time not flinching. "No, Soph, not anymore." She pressed the bluebird into his hand. A moment passed in the hush of afternoon. Some names echo in the room long after the business ends. Sometimes, when the fog finally lifts, what stays behind is only what you dared carry forward. The following Saturday, the city stretched under an early autumn sun, a stubborn, forgiving warmth that tangled shop awnings and painted gold along the busy avenue. Matthew and Sophia pedaled along the edge of River Market, his old bicycle adapted now with a second seat, a child's helmet bobbing every time she laughed. The battered bluebird rode in her upturned palm, its glaze gleaming in the clean light. They parked by the bakery. Inside, Sophia pressed a nose to the glass, deciding between pastries while Matthew chatted with Mrs. Lewicki, who insisted on 2 muffins for the price of 1. "I saw your name in last week's paper," she said, handing him the brown paper sack. "About time you made something of yourself again." He offered a wry smile. "I don't think selling bread made the Tribune." She lifted her chin. "Don't matter, some of us watched what you did even if it was not in print." Sophia tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, is it okay if I give her the bird?" He blinked. "The bluebird, are you sure?" She nodded hard. "She looks lonely today." Mrs. Lewicki hesitated as Sophia pressed the tiny ceramic into her hand. "It's broken," Sophia explained gently, "but broken things can still be pretty, right?" The woman fingered the chipped wing, throat tight. "You are a very special girl." When they left, Sophia skipped, as if lighter for having let something go. Matthew's phone buzzed in his pocket, Jeffries' name on the screen. His thumb hovered, then he let the call ring out. Today, he told himself, was not for work. But work in some fashion found him anyhow. As they rode home, a flash of blue lights cut the intersection. A water main burst had evacuated 3 blocks. The bus route snarled, kids idling at corners, parents craning to see what was next. Matthew ducked under crime tape, guiding Sophia by the hand, and found himself shoulder to shoulder with neighbors and city crews. A man in a city vest paced, phone to ear, panic a taut thread. "Our generator's failing, school's backup system too. We can't get the call through." Matthew caught part of the wiring schematic from over his shoulder. He stepped in. "Show me the fuse grid, please." The worker blinked at him, then, recognizing, shoved a clipboard forward. Without waiting for approval, Matthew scanned the grid, found the mismarked breaker in seconds. "Don't touch the secondary transformer, route through the main circuit instead. You'll stabilize the output." The man stared. "You do this for a living." He just shrugged, offering a worn half-smile. "I used to." With a few deft motions, the lights along the crosswalk flickered back, a subdued cheer breaking out from the crowd. Sophia squeezed his hand, eyes proud. "You really don't look like a superhero," she whispered, voice conspiratorial. "Maybe they don't either, kiddo," he replied. At the edge of the group, Jeffries emerged, tie askew, spectacles glinting. "Never really off duty, are you?" he muttered. Matthew didn't bristle. Someone's gotta keep things moving. So how are you doing, Sloane, really? Matthew considered a moment. I'm better, steadier. Sophia's good at reminding me when I stray. Looks like she's teaching you as much as the world's taught her, Jeffries said. Sophia grinned up, not shy now. I'm the boss after school. Jeffries crouched, lowering his voice to her pitch. If I tell your daddy we need him again, does he have to do what you say first? She considered solemnly. Yes, and he has to fold my note into a crane instead of a boat next time because cranes are luckier. Jeffries laughed, understood. The three wandered to a nearby playground as the cruise finished up. Matthew lingered at the perimeter, watching Sophia tackle the monkey bars, head thrown back, every so often calling, "Daddy, look." He looked every time. Soon Jeffries cleared his throat, turning serious. There's something you should know. Hannah's quietly job hunting. She's been to 3 headhunters, corporates threadbare. Matthew didn't answer right away. The world had a way of spinning out old rivals until they found softer ground. Everybody lands somewhere, Jeffries. Tell them not to give her a hard time. There's enough rot in the system, no need to pile on. Jeffries eyed him, then nodded. Wouldn't be my style anyhow. A group of parents nearby ushered their kids along, one asking, "Is that the Sloane who fixed the blackout last year?" Another nodded. "He's the one, lost his wife, I think, keeps to himself mostly." Jeffries caught the fragments but offered nothing to confirm nor deny. Matthew's privacy, hard won, was a territory Jeffries no longer trespassed. Later, as the day cooled, Matthew and Sophia walked home through streets papered with early leaves. She reached for his hand, warm, small. "Can we get Mommy flowers tomorrow, the good kind that don't fall over?" He swallowed, of course. They tried the flower vendor at the corner, who wrapped tulips in green paper heavier than Sophia's grip. At the cemetery, Sophia arranged them carefully on the stone, tucked another folded crane into the grass, and whispered, "Tell her thank you, Daddy." Matthew sat beside her, the hush of end of day folding in. For the first time in years, he didn't have to fill the silence. It felt almost enough. Sunday dawned with rain tapping at the panes. The apartment's windows steamed as Matthew made pancakes, burnt at the edges but golden in the middle. Sophia colored at the tiny table, humming Yellow Submarine. His phone buzzed again. Jeffries. This time he answered. "You heard about the old city district contract?" the operations lead asked. "Just rumors. They want you back, consultation part-time, wiring overhaul." He looked out the window at Sophia licking syrup from her fingers, the bluebird perched in her drawing. "Not full-time," he said, quiet but determined. "No, just enough to keep us honest. I think the hotel's learned a thing or two about humility." Matthew turned the offer over in his mind. "We'll talk later, after Sophia's bedtime." "That's fine," Jeffries agreed. "I'll text the details." When he hung up, Sophia's head tilted. "Is that your boss?" "No, sweetheart, just a friend, the kind who remembers things." She nodded, then he'll remember to say please. He grinned. "I don't take jobs from people who don't." By Monday, stories about the hotel's new management tumbled through the city gossip. Hannah, word had it, was interviewing for a directorship at an arts nonprofit in Greentown. Matthew read a blurb in the local section, no bitterness, no gloating. Instead, a hollow echo of an old adversary finding a new refrain. He pondered whether to call to offer reconciliation but let the number fade. Some goodbyes worked best as quiet distances. But the city, always smaller than it pretended, left no secrets alone for long. That Friday, he picked Sophia up from school after the last bell. She'd drawn a picture, 3 stick people, a big sun, and a patch of muddy blue. "Who's this?" he asked, tracing the shortest figure with his thumb. "That's Mommy, the one in the sun is you, I'm under the bird, and that's a boat for all of us to ride." His chest tightened at her matter-of-fact wisdom. She squirmed. "Miss Bell says we're going to the city art fair tomorrow. Will you come?" He squeezed her hand. "Absolutely, wouldn't miss it." Saturday brought a river of people in painted stalls to the avenue. fragrant with kettle corn, cut stems, fried dough, and turpentine. Sophia darted from canvas to jewelry, pausing longest where an old potter spun clay on a wheel. She watched transfixed as he shaped animals, owls, snails, long-winged birds. Matthew browsed nearby, nodding to neighbors, a pleasant anonymity settling over him. He spotted someone at a corner booth, Hannah, hair pulled back, jacket exchanged for a volunteer's t-shirt. She handed out brochures, her gestures softer, voice modulated to the hush of the tent. She noticed him before he could look away. For a second, something like apology crossed her face. He nodded once, not inviting, not brittle, only a marker of time's passage. The tension of their history swirled around them like old dust, but she simply mouthed, "Thank you." He inclined his head, accepting the unfinished grace. Sophia noticed, sidling up, "Who's she?" "Someone I worked with," he answered honestly. Sophia considered, watching Hannah from across the crowd. She looks sad today. He nodded. "Some days everyone does. It's what we do about it that counts." They bought a clay bird from the potter. Sophia selected a plump one, wings outstretched, no cracks or chips. "This one's for us," she declared. The other was for sharing, but everyone needs one for keeping. He pressed a coin into the old man's palm, hearing his own father's voice echo, "Never cheap out on things that last," and looked at Sophia, hope welling beneath the ache. "Let's find the music next," he suggested. She hopped ahead, bird underarm, laughter threading through the clamor. Later that night, with Sophia tucked in, the city finally quiet, Matthew sat at the kitchen table with Jeffries again on the line. "You really want to drag me back in?" Jeffries' voice was nostalgic, not dragging, just asking. "It's honest work, Sloan, they trust you now." He exhaled, "One condition, I bring Sophia on site sometimes. She learns fast." "She'll have a badge," Jeffries assured him, tone warm. They swapped details, mutual respect making the silences easy. When he hung up, Matthew set his phone down, staring at the distant skyline. The city was still a patchwork, frayed in places, stitched anew in others. He thought he'd left behind the work, the urgency, the hope that came with responsibility, but maybe now it fit him in a new shape. The following weekend saw him back at the district office, safety vest over his sweater, Sophia's hand wrapped around the handle of her backpack. She wore her new clay bird as a pendant, painted by her own fingers, proud as any emblem she could invent. The project manager, a younger woman with bright shoes and a steady handshake, ushered them in. "You must be Sophia, heard a lot about your folding skills," she joked, nodding at a paper boat peeking from the girl's pocket. Sophia offered it over, grinning. "You can have it. If you don't lose it, it'll bring good ideas." Matthew worked beside a team of electricians and city techs, showing Sophia how to read a circuit diagram, what colors meant in the complex veins of a building, how to tell a healthy transformer by its gentle, constant hum. She soaked it all in, as fearless among transformers as among schoolmates. Halfway through the day, the project manager pulled Matthew aside near the loading dock. "I read about what you did, the Lisbon thing, and with the FDA, it's rare someone rebuilds so quietly." He shrugged, unused to praise. There are always second chances for buildings and for people. She glanced over at Sophia drawing on a spare blueprint. "You planning to stay a while this time?" He hesitated, looking through the glass at his daughter, tracing lines and cranes. "Yeah, I think we just might." At the first hard rain of October, apartment 2G smelled of bread and new crayons. Matthew paid overdue bills and sorted Sophia's school forms, the badge from a lifetime ago finally tucked in a drawer that shut easily. He started keeping Sunday mornings free, no readings, no side work or hotel contract. They spent them walking the riverbank, tossing stones, boat races on the eddies. Each time Sophia lost, he showed her how to fold a better sail. After the third try, her boat skimmed farther than his. Now and then an old contact, a consulate friend, a Tribune editor, even Hannah once sent a note offering warmth or news or a tentative olive branch. He replied when it was called for, always brief, always ending with, "Hope you're well." Bitterness, he learned, only tied knots he could not untangle. He sometimes wondered if Hannah thought the same. Sometimes, late at night, he wished her well and meant it. Thanksgiving arrived with cold rain. They invited Jeffries and his daughter for pie. The table crammed with paper birds, crayons, and lists of grateful things. Sophia read hers aloud. "Thank you for my daddy, my school, and for bluebirds that get lost but are still loved." The grown-ups waited for composure, some days just as fragile as the kids. The years pressed on. Sophia grew tall and independent. She made first friends, then lost and found new ones. She saved her allowance for gifts not for herself, but for teachers and neighbors. Her father kept the same slow, careful pace. On good weeks, he took the train to consult at the city's oldest theater, where he taught high school apprentices about fuses, belts, and what it meant to pay attention, to details, to people, to the stories buildings tried to tell. The bluebird, both the chipped and unbroken, found places of honor in the apartment's only window. There was space for both kinds now. Every so often, Matthew wrote a letter to himself he'd never send. Reminders of the cost of pride, the cost of forgiveness, the risk of trust. He cherished the days that came with doubt but ended in peace, and the ones where Sophia's laughter pulled him through. Long after news of the Grand Hotel faded, long after Hannah's new work stabilized and Jeffries moved on to another city, what stayed was quieter than headlines but more true. Little notes, folded birds, and the relentless, stubborn hope that ordinary days can become extraordinary when you carry only what you need and share the rest. One evening, as light angled honeythick across their old wooden floor, Sophia practiced skipping stones on the balcony railing. "Dad," she said, holding out another blue boat she'd folded herself, "do you think it's okay to let things go even if they crack a little?" He turned it in his hands, noting the slight tear at one edge, and smiled. "I think that's the only way they learn to float." This time when he watched her, he didn't smile just to hide sorrow. He simply smiled, full and unguarded, at his daughter's light, at her laughter, at the home they'd made in rooms once full of ghosts. For the first time, he believed the world could hold them both. The broken and the whole, the remembered and the forgiven, imperfect and brightly, fiercely alive. The balcony that evening was canted gold by the dwindling sun, the city below a scatter of windows blinking and winking as lights flickered on. The market's faint music rose in wafts between honking horns and a distant vendor hawking late apples, all worry at bay for one suspended moment. Inside, Sophia lined up her paper boats and birds along the windowsill beside the clay bluebirds. She arranged them just so, no order but her own, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. "That one," she announced, pointing to the boat with the ragged prow, "takes the longest trip. It has to because it's not scared." She sounded older than her 7 years, conviction unshaken. Matthew watched her, hands tucked in the pockets of his worn sweater, letting the melody of her words settle the last waves of his day. "You think it knows where it's going, or does it just keep going even when it's lost?" Sophia grinned, bright and assured. "Both. Lost things are just on adventure before they find home again." She spun, the skirt of her pajamas twirling, and dashed into the kitchen. "Can we have tea, with honey this time?" He followed, rolling up his sleeves in a gesture so familiar even he caught the echo in it. As the kettle hissed, Sophia loaded 2 mugs with honey, perhaps more than he'd ever allow on another day. "Dad," she said, "do you remember when you were sad, really sad, and you didn't want me to see?" He stilled, not flinched, her directness cut like spring water. "Yeah," he said quietly, gazing at the swirling steam, "I remember." "I saw anyway," she replied, not accusing, just true. "But I like now better. It feels like we're both here, not just waiting." He let the silence linger, letting it fill with warmth rather than ache. He passed her the mug, fingers brushing hers. "I think I like now better too. I'm glad you kept waiting, even when it took me a while to catch up." She smiled, sipping at her tea, the sun catching a honey glimmer at her lip. "That's 'cause you were looking backwards," she said. "You can't steer if you keep looking back, Daddy." He took it in, another lesson from a child who'd been forced to learn patience too young. Well, he said, lucky for me, I've got you to remind me which way is forward. The clock in the hallway ticked gentle reminders of routine, bedtime soon, school bags hung, shoes by the door. Sophia finished her tea and tucked her feet up on the chair. Can I tell you a secret? Always, he said. She leaned close, lowering her voice as if the paper birds might tattle. I used to wish for things to go back for you and me and Mommy, but now I think it's okay to wish for new things instead, even if they're not what I expected. She fiddled with the clay bird's wing, the chip worn smooth by her thumb. It doesn't make me forget her, it just makes more room. Matthew swallowed, something catching in his chest, joy or grief, it hardly mattered, both too fierce to name. He wrapped her in his arms, tucking her close, his chin on her hair. There's always room for what was, what is, and what's next. The last rays of daylight slipped below the hem of the city, windows turning to mirrors. Sophia giggled, wriggling free to skip toward the bedroom. I'm going to make 3 cranes tonight, one for each of us, and you have to write a wish in the folds, Daddy, for real this time. He grinned, deal, but only if you help me fold the corners. I was never as good as you. She disappeared, trilling victory, and he heard the rummaging for origami paper. Matthew lingered in the quiet kitchen, letting the smile stay. He wiped down the table, rinsed mugs, tidied what little mess there was, grateful for the kind of untidiness that meant a living home. When he finally joined her, Sophia was cross-legged on the bed, sheets a nest of blue and yellow and green paper squares. She patted the spot beside her. Come on, the first one's yours. They folded together, creases sharp and careful, laughter uncoiling as paper became wings. Matthew whispered his wish, so quietly Sophia couldn't hear, tucking it into the final crease. There, he said, sealed in. Don't tell me, she sang, that's how it works. They lined the 3 cranes up beside the bluebird, a parliament of hope. What do you wish for, Soph? He asked. She was silent for a long moment, eyes tracing the city's slow river of headlights far below. I wish you keep choosing here even when the world tries to take you other places, she said simply. He tousled her hair, landing a soft kiss on her forehead. That's an easy wish to grant. As she slipped beneath her covers, Matthew tucked her in, smoothing away a curl from her brow. He leaned in close, voice soft. Hey, you're the bravest person I know, you know that. You carry the best of all of us forward. She yawned, tucking both a bird and a crane into her palm, hand closing gently around the familiar shapes. Night, Daddy. Good night, Magic, he replied, as he always did. He left her door ajar, the hall lit by just enough city glow to keep the shadows gentle. In the living room, he paused before the window, cranes and bluebirds reflected back at him. His reflection was older now, but lighter, lines softened not by forgetting, but by forgiveness. The city breathed beyond the glass, full of endings and beginnings. Hotel lights, bakery awnings, the faint trace of old jobs and harder goodbyes. Matthew breathed too and found he could let go of the lost things. The world, he realized, would always break and rebuild, and so would he. And what mattered was not what he clung to, but what he chose to share over and over for as long as time allowed. And there, amid the hum and hush of a deepening night, with folded cranes and the hope of tomorrow, Matthew Sloane finally felt at home, whole in himself, and in the company he kept, each imperfect thing shining in the honest, ordinary light of one more day.